Hello everyone, this is Faezer signing in here, and today we're going to look at Demon Hunter, and especially Vengeance in this video. The 7.1.5 PTR patch notes are out, so these are the changes that they have in mind, probably going to come in the next 4 or 5 weeks, I'm guessing, maybe a little bit later, could be a little bit earlier. We're just going to go over the Vengeance ones in this video, and then going to do a Havoc one later. So, first of all, I'm just going to go quickly over all of the changes that seem to be noted so far. Overall, this is actually what I'd consider to be a buff to the Vengeance Demon Hunter tanks. There's some nice things in here. There is some nerfs to some different things, and we're going to go over them all here now. So, we'll start off with Abyssal Strike. So basically, that talent has now been increased to reduce the cooldown of Infernal Strike by 8 seconds as opposed to 5 seconds. So it's just a small buff to that. Agonizing Flames. So this is the first row. We'll go over the talent section later, but just to quickly go over everything. Agonizing Flames been nerfed again to 20% damage now for Immolation Aura. It was 50% originally, it went down to 30%, so at the moment on live it's 30%, and now they want to bring it even further down to 20%. It's a bit of a nerf, but what we'll see later when we show the talents, it should be okay. Yes, this is probably a bit of a nerf to our damage and a bit of leech, but there are some other options now. Blade Turning, this was 50% parry. After parrying an attack, the pain generation of shear is increased by 50%, is now 65%, so it's just very small. A small pain thing for shear, it's not that much, not that really good, so I wouldn't really worry about this one. It's still a passive rubbish talent, there are better ones. Blind Fury, it's Havoc. Burning Alive. Nerf, but you would use this, it would leech over to another 2 targets that were next to the target that you did Fiery Brand on. Now it only does it to 1 additional enemy, so we're only getting 2 targets instead of 3. Most situations you'd only get it on 1 target anyway, you're using it on the boss or a mini boss, and this was the best talent in terms of damage as well. And for AoE tanking, but unfortunately it's got a bit of a nerf. Wouldn't worry about it too much though. Chaos Cleave's DPS, Demon Blaze, Demonic Appetite. Here's a new talent. This one is pretty good. Draw from the power of the Twisting Nether to instantly activate and then refill your charges of Demon Spikes and generate 60 pain. This is a 2-minute cooldown. This is essentially our version of the Brewmaster's Fortifying Brew one, is it? I can't remember. It refills the charges of their Iron Skin, and the Prop Paladin one version of resetting their bastions, their shields, active mitigation. So this is our version now. We've actually got something. This is actually really good, and we'll go in more depth as well as why it's really good. Because it combos with some other talents. Desperate Instincts, DPS, Fell Barrage, DPS, Fell Devastation. This has not been changed in terms of damage or anything. What's happened is it's moved on the talent row, so we'll look at that later. Fell Eruption, this just got a buff, so it increases the damage. Wait, I think that one's DPS. No, is it tank? Yeah. 30-second cooldown instead of 35-second. So just minor change. We'll look into that later. Fellblade is now. Oh wait, sorry, that's Havoc one. First Blood. So First Blood, Havoc. It's just you could have put these together nicely, but Fracture. This is a big change to Fracture. So it's now only cost 20 pain as opposed to 40 pain. And remember that this did a nice bit of single target damage. Remember, this is only a single target. Did nice damage and gave you 2 lesser soul fragments. So again, that's really good. Last Resort, a bit of a nerf to this. Now, it says it's been changed to 8 minutes. That's quite harsh, considering that we have other tanks have got things, and I don't know if they've been changed. Maybe if they have as well, like Purgatory, then that would be fine if all tanks are like that. But to have ours changed from 3 minute to 8 minute, that is very mean. It means that basically you're only going to get it once in a raid if it happens. Maybe rather than 2 times, you could be lucky. But in terms of dungeons, this is a bit of a nerf as well, because you could be going from pack to pack, and in the high level ones, Last Resort would save you a couple times, and it does prevent wipes as well. So having it to change to 8 minutes is a bit nasty. Nemesis DPS, Netherwalk DPS, Razor Spikes. So this is again on the first row of the Vengeance talents. Demon Spikes now increases your physical damage by 30% instead of 20%. So again, that's quite a nice buff. Remember that the other talents changed. We'll take a look at them later. But this combos quite well with some of the single target talents like Fracture. Since Fracture's physical damage. And that's something that some people don't realise, is you got to remember that it's physical damage. Physical damage is not what we get our leech from neither, because we leech from fire damage. So this is simply a single target damage increase talent. I mean, it can work as well with Soul Cleave, but remember that when you look at your recount, you know what your most damage looks like on AoE, and it's pretty much Immolation Aura and Fell Devastation, whatever. It's pretty much the fire damage. An Infernal Strike, whatever. So we'll look at that later. Sigil of Chains, been a bit of a nerf, just 30 seconds increase, so it's a 1.5 minute cooldown now. That's 1 minute 30 seconds. I guess it doesn't matter too much. I usually would have been holding on to a Sigil of Chains for a specific pack in dungeons, so 30 seconds doesn't make that much of a difference. Still probably going to take this in dungeons. I mean, you wouldn't really take it unless it was specifically required in a raid boss encounter. So maybe, say, Il'gynoth, where you want to get gripping all those buds in. I'm not sure there is in Nighthold. Soul Barrier. Soul Barrier got a buff as well, so this makes it a little bit better of a talent. However, even though the pain has been reduced by 20, so it only costs 10 pain, so it basically costs nothing almost, it's now been changed to 30 seconds. So it's a bit of a nerf. It was kind of hard to achieve 5 spirit bomb things. What the fuck called? 5 orbs to get the most value out of this talent. 30 seconds increases time, so you should have it. But I mean, if you were taking certain talents, it would be easy to get 5 little spirit orbs. But again, I never really used this talent. There was no need for it. I'd always choose Last Resort over this one. But with the nerf to Last Resort, it does devalue that talent quite a lot. And this one, I'd say, has been buffed. So it does make this a lot more appealing. Soul Rending, leeching while you're in Metamorphosis, has been reduced to 70%. Oh, never mind. Sorry, that's bloody Havoc again. It was already 70%, I think, in tank. Spirit Bomb has been buffed, so it lasts a little bit longer, and you leech for 20% as opposed to 15%. So that is competing with, well, we'll see the talents, but it's competing with some other talents. Change rows, so I'd say this is a very good talent now as well for survivability. But that's it for the changes in general to the talents. However, there's some very nice things in the actual specific spells of Vengeance here. So Demonic Ward, we now passively get an extra 10% stamina. That's pretty nice, as it does work with Metamorphosis, increasing our max HP by a percentage, so that it further increases how much stamina we get from that. Fiery Brand, I don't think that has changed. No, that's not changed. They've just changed due to deal. Nothing changed there. But the big change, which is going to increase the value of Vengeance Demon Hunters, is Metamorphosis. Now, remember, Metamorphosis is the cooldown that we have, which is a 3-minute cooldown. But you've got to remember that the artifact trait over here, Fueled by Pain, where you have a chance to activate Metamorphosis for 5 seconds, when you consume a soul fragment, that's the word I was looking for, soul fragment. When you consume a soul fragment, you do have a chance to go into Metamorphosis. So what has changed here? You now gain 100% increase to your armor. That is, on average, I'd say for most people, looking to be about a 15% damage reduction. So it isn't no shield wall from the Prot Warriors, don't get me wrong, but it is a nice little damage reduction that we will get every time it procs, and for our 3-minute cooldown, because a lot of people were complaining that when you compare our cooldown, which is Metamorphosis, as opposed to Shield Wall, as opposed to Guardian of the Kings, just the Guardian Bears one, Survival Instincts, we don't have the big AoE damage reduction. Fiery Brand has been nerfed, remember, the talent to only apply it to 2 targets, so we couldn't apply it to 3. So we were lacking in that area. Now this has been quite a big buff. But that's not it. It also greatly empowers your ability of your Shear. I don't think you can see it here, but I know what it does. I think it does slightly more damage. It might be double damage. Somewhere along those lines it just does more damage now. And it will generate a Spirit Fragment now every time you use Shear. So that's really, really good, because it allows you to do more Spirit Bombs. It allows you to heal more. If you choose certain talents, it allows you to get Demon Spikes quicker. That's a very nice single target damage and Spirit Fragment generation. So all in all, I think that's some pretty good change. But with going through all of that, now we'll look at the actual talents, how they look here. So a few things have changed position. So this is the PTR. Things will change probably again, maybe just in value, but this is what they're looking at right now. So Infernal Strike, remember this has been reduced to 8 seconds now, as opposed to before it was 5 seconds. So that's a nice change. It's not an incredible amount of increase, but it will increase damage if you were taking this talent, and also leeching through if you choose Flame Crash to combo this with. So I'd definitely say if you chose that talent that you'd definitely go with Flame Crash. I can't unclick that. Okay. But Agonizing Flames, remember, has been nerfed to 20% damage, so Immolation Aura does 20% increase now as opposed to 30%. It's a bit of a letdown, because this not only is damage, remember, Immolation Aura was among our biggest damage dealt, and it was fire damage, so that contributed to Leech. So this is a small nerf to Leech as well. And here we go with the Razor Spikes, where Razor Spikes has been buffed. So we've got these two talents have been buffed, and Agonizing Flames has been nerfed. So they kind of balances them out more. But what I'd recommend, I'll go over what setups I recommend after we go through them all. Feast of Souls not changed, so it's still just a nice little passive heal. It's very small. I never choose this one. I had always gone with Fallout or Burning Alive. Fallout is offering, it's still the same, just a good amount of soul fragments. You get a lot when you're tanking mythic dungeons where you get lots of mobs. And Burning Alive is just there for single target damage, 2 target damage instead of 3 target anymore. It's only 2 target or 1 target. Preferably, I mean, I'd stick with Fallout just because of the soul fragments. Unless you have a reason, unless you maybe get the legendary. There's a new legendary actually, which I'll go over them in a bit. That increases Burning Alive. Next row we've got Fellblade. That's same, just nice bit of single target damage. Generate a bit of fury. Flame Crash, again just Sigil of Flames, allowing you to do extra AoE damage. Fell Eruption. So remember that did get changed, just 5 seconds less. So I think a bit of more damage, maybe something. I don't really stick with that. I wouldn't choose that. You're either going to choose Fell Blade for single target or for Flame Crash for cleaving and AoE. Next row, Feed the Demon. Consuming Soul Fragment, reduce Demon Spikes, 1 sec, not changed. Fracture is the one that's changed here. It's been reduced to 20 pain. Remember that's 20 pain, so that's a lot more. You can spam this twice as much almost. So that's massive single target damage. And remember that this is physical damage. What else is physical damage? Razor Spikes. So that's increased it by 30%. So that's a massive difference. We'll be able to do a lot more single target damage in that sense. Soul Rending, 50% leech. Sorry, it wasn't 70%, it was 50%. So 50% leech and Metamorphosis. Remember that with the Metamorphosis change, reducing our damage taken by about 15%, I would recommend probably moving away from this talent and getting either Feed the Demon, which is reducing, if you're looking for more survivability, stick with Feed the Demon, or have Fracture for single target. Personally, in my sense, when I'm doing Mythic Dungeons, I'm probably either going to be taking Feed the Demon for the higher level ones, but for ones where I want more single target damage, since this is the only one in the row that offers a DPS increase when you're facing just one target, which you'll be doing at bosses, maybe even priority target adds, where I don't feel like I'm going to be dying. Because remember that this is not leech damage because it's physical, but it is contributing to soul fragments, which is healing. So even though it doesn't necessarily heal, it will contribute to healing through the soul fragments. So don't be fooled that this isn't helping in any way, because it is helping. It is contributing quite a lot of healing through the soul fragments. It's just not constant by doing the soul cleaves. But all in all, I'd probably stick with this one. Just it feels more safer. So next row, same again. These haven't changed other than Sigil Change. It's been a little bit longer of a cooldown. I still usually stick with Sigil Change. Just a nice thing. But here on the next row, Demonic Infusion, great talent. This is allowing us to get a much higher uptime on Demon Spikes. So this is an extra, when you need it, able to get an extra 2 charges on Demon Spikes. And generate 60 pain as well, so that can get 3 fractures in. There's a little combo here that you could maybe see right there from those 3 talents for single target, where you activate your Razor Spikes, doing 30% increased damage, spamming those fractures, use your other demon spikes, keep on spamming those fractures, and you're able to do quite a lot of damage, and then refresh your demon spikes and carry on again with 60 new pain. Like you get an additional 60 pain, able to do 3 more fractures, especially if you're getting hit by mobs. If it was a hard hitting boss, you're going to be constantly getting pain, and that's a load of fractures you can do. You can actually do quite high single target damage with this. Remember as well, if you have Fiery Brand, the trait which increases your damage, this one here, increases your damage dealt to the target. You have three traits in that. That's 30% increased damage, and this is massive burst window that we're able to do with Razor Spikes and Fracture. Blade Turning, slight buff. I wouldn't pick this one over the others. It's pretty weak in comparison. Spirit Bomb. So here's the argument between the 2 talents of Spirit Bomb and Demonic Infusion. So Spirit Bomb, I definitely say, is for AoE Mythic Dungeons, and I'd stick to Demonic Infusion for raid bosses. The reason is that Spirit Bomb, maybe you'd be getting lots of fragments out of Fracture. You can do that, and then throw those shadow fragments out to all those enemies. It deals quite a bit of damage, and remember that it's leeching for 20% of the damage that you deal for 20 seconds, so there'd be no reason not to have 100% uptime on this buff, and it's been buffed again. So people were arguing to take this when it was 15%. Now it's 20%. I'd say that's pretty good talent. Just remember, you're comparing it to one that's going to reduce your damage taken by having more demon spikes uptime. Remember that we're pretty strong during demon spikes. Outside of demon spikes, we're pretty weak. So you've got to compare that to, are you going for more damage, AoE damage and survivability, or are you going for a higher uptime on demon spikes? In which case, I mean, if you wanted higher uptime, you can also take Feed the Demon with that, and that's going to have even higher, the best kind of uptime that you have, especially during Fallout. Get more of those fragments out to reset this Feed the Demon. Last row, last resort, also probably the last talent I want to be choosing, since it's an 8-minute debuff now that it triggers, so it's pretty unfortunate really. It quite devalues this talent considering, but I mean, on average, when you think about it, when you do a mythic dungeon, how often are you dying? I mean, if you feel comfortable, you're only going to get this proc once or twice in a high level dungeon if you were trying to really push for the time. So you got to think, 8 minutes, would you be dying in 8 minutes again? For raids, most fights don't last more than 6-7 minutes, so you're probably only ever going to get this procced once, so it won't matter really in raids, because if you were going to die, you're probably going to die in another 3 minutes. Look at Ursoc, for example. The fight lasts for 4 to 5 minutes in Mythic, so you're probably going to get this procced on average, like maybe 2 minutes into the fight. Yeah, you get this procced. You weren't going to be able to get it triggered again anyway. So this is more of a nerf to dungeons. So the problem is though as well is that you're asking us to fight between Fell Devastation, which is a massive AoE damage, and Leech with fire damage in comparison to Last Resort, and with the further buff to Soul Barrier, even though it's 30-second cooldown, it'll be available for almost every pack. So you can get a bunch of fragments out doing fractures, get the Soul Barrier out. So what you could do is you could go in the fight, have Demon Spikes up, throw out a couple fractures, that's 4 Soul Fragments straight away, you'll probably get another one, so get a Soul Barrier up, and it's quite a lot of survivability now that does increase. So Soul Barrier if you want more survivability, Fell Devastation if you want more damage, and Last Resort I would probably stick with this in raids, because as a raid for tanks you're never really going really for damage, and this is just a nice last resort, as to say, where you'll be able to survive. If you feel more comfortable and you don't trigger Last Resort, stick with Fell Devastation. It's just a nice damage increase. Otherwise, Soul Barrier if you feel that it's necessary. But that's a cover of over all the talents. So what I'd say for dungeons is probably sticking between. This is where the numbers. I'm not a theorist. I don't know exactly how the numbers work out, but I'd probably be taking Abyssal Strike maybe for dungeons, but probably stick with Agonizing Flames, because if you're pulling lots of mobs, Immolation Aura is still a massive amount of your damage. It's massive leech. Increase that by 20%, and also movement speed is always nice. So for dungeons, Agonizing Flames, probably going with Fallout to increase that Feed the Demon uptime, considering that Burning Alive has been nerfed to 2 targets now instead of 3. It's still okay talent. So I mean, you could choose this one, but this is going to increase higher uptime on Feed the Demon, and also in respect to Spirit Bomb if you choose that talent. Next row, AoE dungeons, again Flame Crash. Fellblaze just single target. I wouldn't choose this anywhere other than for a raid boss. Next row, From now, I wouldn't choose soul running anymore. I don't think I'm going to ever choose this again. I'm either going to be going with Feed the Demon, getting higher uptime on demon spikes. Considering the buff to Metamorphosis, there's not really much need for the leech, since we're being reduced damage taken by 15% during when Metamorphosis procs through your artifact weapon. There won't be much of a need anymore for having this leech because it's a little bit unnecessary. But if you want to go for more damage as opposed to higher uptime on demon spikes in dungeons, you can go with Fracture. If you feel comfortable, maybe you're doing lower dungeon ones, stick with Fracture. It's just nice damage. And remember that this damage does result from soul fragments as well, which can be used with Spirit Bomb for even more damage. Concentrate Sigils, Sigil of Chains, Screen Sigils. I'd go with Sigil of Chains for dungeons. It's just really nice gripping in casters. Maybe it's the Sanguine debuff, where you need to grip them out of the red circle puddles. Or maybe Neltharian's Lair, you want to get the pelters back in. You know, we don't have death grips or knockbacks, so Sigil of Chains is there to grip them in. Next row, Demonic Infusion for survivability. I'd definitely go with that one for survivability. So maybe you were going Feed the Demon, Demonic Infusion for survivability. For damage, I'd go with Fracture and Spirit Bomb. So obviously I prefer going damage, because if you can be a good tank, you know that you can sacrifice a bit of survivability for more damage, and damage helps the kill time, it helps your leeching as well. Personally, I have the leech ring while Demon Spikes is up, so doing more damage for me while Demon Spikes is up. So if I go Feed the Demon, that increases my uptime on Demon Spikes and is really quite handy as well. But I found it quite unnecessary to be getting higher uptime on Demon Spikes, and it's kind of fine because when you go from pack to pack, you bank the charges with your Demon Spikes ready for the next one. So Spirit Bomb's a nice bit of AoE damage, and Leech. Remember that this one got buffed, so 20% as opposed to 15%. So Demonic Infusion for tanking, survivability, Spirit Bomb for damage. And if you can see the pattern, I'll be going for damage. I'm going to pick Fell Devastation. I found it unnecessary to have, even though before I would have gone with Last Resort over Soul Barrier. With the changes to Soul Barrier, this is an even higher absorb amount now. So it has increased in value. And I definitely think that if you feel comfortable using Soul Barrier and managing your orbs, well, first of all, if you're going to take Soul Barrier, don't take Spirit Bomb. I'd definitely go Demonic Infusion. If you're going to take Soul Barrier, that's taking away orbs that you could be using with Spirit Bomb. So never choose these two talents together. I would definitely avoid doing that. If you're going to take Soul Barrier, you're going to have to take Demonic Infusion. If you are not comfortable managing an additional active mitigation, because that's technically what this is. It's just a bigger version of Demon Spikes, but it's on a 30-second cooldown. So if you can manage that, go for it. Otherwise, stick with Last Resort, because Last Resort, even though it's 8 minutes, it's still, you got to remember, you would have wiped if this procced. So if this procced, you've got to think, wow, I just saved a wipe. And you can remember that you died there. Not to mention that it also triggers Metamorphosis, so it increases your damage, remember, because Metamorphosis increases your shear damage and will also generate fragments every time you shear. So every 8 minutes, think of this as a little DPS buff, actually. There you go. So try and proc it every 8 minutes, go for it. Otherwise, Fell Devastation, it's just massive fire damage, grouping everything up, chaining them in, doing Fell Devastation, massive damage. So this is my dungeon setup for in terms of damage. Dungeon setup in terms of survivability, however, still I think you would go with Agonizing Flames. Still with Fallout, you want to get more of those shards. Flame Crash again, because you still have to, even though you're not taking Abyssal Strike, you still have to use Infernal Strike. It does fire damage, it contributes to Leech, get those Sigil of Flames up. The only changes I would make is take Feed the Demon, take Demonic Infusion, and either take Last Resort or Soul Barrier, depending on which one you feel more comfortable with. If you feel comfortable with Purgatory, take Last Resort. If you feel more comfortable with you don't need it and you'd rather... Because what you got to remember is that Soul Barrier is reducing damage that you take. Maybe you are capped out on Spirit Fragments, you're full health. Doing a Soul Cleave would essentially waste all those fragments, but doing a Soul Barrier is going to put a big Absorb shield on you for quite a while. It's 12 seconds, even though when the shield goes, it will subtract somewhere along the lines of, I think, I'm not entirely sure here, it may be around 100k per hit of a target. So if you were tanking 10 mobs, and you use Soul Barrier, you're going to get so much value out of Soul Barrier. So it is a nice survivability because it's 100k off of each hit. So every mob that hits will do 100k less for those 12 seconds, even once that big barrier has gone. So Soul Barrier contributes to a lot of healing, a lot of pressure off of the healers, but Last Resort is cheat death. So I'd probably, if I was going for survivability, go with Soul Barrier. But it's perfectly fine. No one would complain at you for choosing Last Resort, even though it got nerfed. For raids, however, and in terms of raids, I'm talking single target. So single target Razor Spikes, because remember, physical damage is coming from things like Soul Cleave. It's coming from Shear. I remember during Metamorphosis, Shear does a load more damage. Trying to think now what else. Soul Carve, I think, is physical damage. It might be fire damage, I think. Regardless, we do some nice physical damage abilities, and I would take Fracture with that. You can take Fell Blade for single target. Even if there's a bit of cleave, I'd probably stick with Flame Crash. It's just a nice bit of leech. I've never found much use for Fell Blade. It's literally just for single target. I'd take Fell Blade. Fallout for higher soul fragment uptime, or you could just go with Burning Alive. It's a bit of survivability during Fiery Brand, but generally I'd just stick with Fallout. Fracture for that extra damage. Remember, during Razor Spikes, we've got Demonic Infusion. Sorry, I don't think you would pick Sigil of Change. Go Quicken Sigils for raid, since Chains is almost useless in every fight. I mean, there's very few fights where Chains can be used. Looking at things like Ellerith, looking at things like Il'gynoth, you could use it. Outside of that, I mean, you could use it on Hellier last phase. So there are always fights where you can use Sigil of Chains, but you just got to look at it and think, can I use it here? Then go for it. But I would definitely stick with Demonic Infusion for raiding. That's a definite. It allows, when you're tanking, that you can get 100% uptime on Demon Spikes, and then when the tank taunts off, you get to pool back up your Demon Spikes while you're not tanking. So remember, that's a very, very good talent now. Last Resort, again, I'd probably stick with Last Resort if I was raiding. If there's a lot of AoE to do, I'd go Fell Devastation, extra damage, why not? Soul Barrier. Thing is with bosses, remember, bosses hit like a truck, so you won't get much value out of Soul Barrier in terms of how you would in dungeons. If a mob was to be having like Odin, where he does like a flurry of attacks and he has high attack speed, Soul Barrier gets a lot more value. But even still, I would choose Last Resort for raiding. So that's what I would pick in terms of raiding. Another thing to note is that during dungeons, you can still go with Razor Spikes, because physical damage is related to Soul Cleave as well. So you could go with that, picking Feed the Demon to increase the Demon Spike uptime, and allow you to do more AoE damage through Soul Cleave. Picking Demonic Infusion again for allowing you to get more pain to do a bigger soul cleave again, and to reset the cooldowns on demon spikes, so you can continue to do 30% increased damage. Fell devastation still for AoE damage, but that's just another thing. So you can pick razor spikes as opposed to agonizing flame and spirit bomb. So I don't know exactly what the maths would show would be better. Generally, I think that agonizing flames and spirit bomb would be better than razor spikes and demonic confusion for damage. So another thing to note really about the legendaries then is that we have had one change, and this is where equip Metamorphosis resets the cooldown on your sigils and empower wards, and grants you one charge of demon spikes now. So this is the shoulders. So before it did only just reset resets the remaining cooldown on all your sigils. So before it only did sigils. So now increasing our magic damage reduction, allowing you to do another empower wards, and also granting you a charge of demon spikes. So like Jesus, that's a lot of demon spikes that you can get every time you trigger Metamorphosis. So that's become quite a good legendary now. However, for the other new legendaries that are coming, I have no idea if you're able to get this in the tank legendaries, but if you can get that as a DPS and then equip it as tank, it's a fat load of agility, okay, so 2.1k agility, crit, haste, and mastery, so nice little passive stats, no one's complaining about that, but the thing that's extremely amazing here is the unuse effect. So you fire a vortex of destruction that seeks your current enemy. When it reaches the enemy, it explodes, dealing 862,000 fire damage. We leech off fire damage, remember again, so that's a nice little bit of a heal. It's just a fat ton of damage for AoE, so you pull a load of stuff and just pop this bad boy. I've got no idea what the cooldown is on this. I imagine it has to be 2 minute probably. Maybe it's a little bit longer. It better be longer because it's bloody OP if it's a short cooldown, for dungeons at least. But if we move down here to the leather shoulders, the remaining, so this is for leather shoulders, the remaining cooldown on Metamorphosis is reduced by 1 second for every 15 fury that you spend. Hold on, that one's for for Havoc. Let's scroll down even further. Here we go, here's the Vengeance one. So this is where I was talking about earlier, about Fiery Brand. So this is the leather hands. When you use your Fiery Brand now heals you for 150% of the damage done, and each enemy hit by your Sigil of Flame increases the damage of your next Fiery Brand by 20%, stacking up to 15 times. That's my god, that's hold on, oh god, I've got to do maths now. You know what, I'm just going to say it's somewhere along the lines of 300%, is that right? Something like 300%, yeah, 300%. Right, 300% increase to Fiery Brand, so my god, that's a lot of damage. No idea if that works with the talent Burning Alive. I don't know if that works with Burning Alive, where Burning Alive then does a little bit of ticking damage. If it does, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of damage and probably one of the best legendaries that you could get. Where's it gone now? Leather hands. Leather hands. Yeah. So that is a lot of damage. Stats are okay. Versatility mastery. Would have been better with probably some haste, but yeah, that's the legendaries. I think is there not another one? I assume this is the a tank one, where you can gain an absorb shield equal to 50% of your max health for 10 seconds. So that's a nice big shield. It's almost it's it's better than the Prid has, let's put it that way. When the shield is consumed or expired, 100% of the damage absorbed is dealt to nearby enemies, split evenly. So, regardless of the damage component, even if, I mean, that is like 2.5 million damage, because assuming that we have, well, with the buff to stamina, I assume most people, when 7.1.5 comes out, having about 4 million health, along those lines. So that's 2 million damage every time you use this, 50% of your health, 2 mil damage. It's just versatility, mastery, strength, passive. You know, that's quite a lot of damage, and is quite good survivability. 50% shield. But yeah, I mean, if you had a choice, I'd definitely choose the fire damage one over the shield. But they're the legendaries for Havoc. That's my Vengeance Demon Hunter overview. I hope that you all enjoyed that. Make sure to leave any comments down below what you think. I always look there and can have a discussion. Feel free to comment anything that you think would be different, better ways to sort these talents out, or what you even think should change in the upcoming patches for 7.1.5. This is Faezer signing out, so thank you for watching, and leave a like. See ya!